Lady Rolana, are you crazy? An intelligent-looking bespectacled female elf prosecutor glared at the elf officer standing opposite to her, while raising her hand and pointing at me. To put this dirty, filthy, disgusting, perverted, nasty orc in the highest institution of our country would be like putting a wolf in a flock of sheep. I want to say the titles given to me by this lady are too much. Though I felt that blood vessels in my forehead were about to burst open. I tried my best to endure it. Calm down, Brock. It's even more important to keep calm in face of the insults that deliberately provoke prisoners of war. Not to mention, what can you do now? Once again, I looked at shackles on my hands and the entire cage that held me. These things couldn't be broken with bare hands. However, the shackles and cages were fine. But what's with this collar around my neck? Do these long-eared elves like to humiliate prisoners of war? After the interrogation, was this trial meeting for disposal of prisoners of war? It was most probably going to be the death sentence. However, that was fine. Don't be so aggressive. Prosecutor Wensari. The silver-haired female officer named Rolana clasped her hands. I just made the proposal and had begun to explain the rationality of the proposal. Could you please not interrupt me in such a rush? The female elf prosecutor glared. What reasons can there be to let this lustful, smelly monster move freely in our territory? My body trembled involuntarily because of anger. And I endured it again. Rolana turned to face the row of long-eared elves perched high on the seats. They were probably judges. I want to ask why all are female elves. Even in the audience. As we all know, our country, Sadian, has been in confrontation with the orc tribes occupying the western valleys for many years. At one time we tried to break into the valley to drive them out and root out future troubles. However, it is easy to defend and difficult to attack. Our troops have never been able to break through the defense line outside the valley. Moreover, after the Alliance's crusade against the Demon King that happened decades ago, both human and dwarven nations have rebuilt themselves after that disaster, but we elves still have not recovered. Currently, we are in urgent need of rebuilding our homeland and restoring the population. Fighting with orcs will damage our foundation. So, Lady Rolana, what do you mean? The chief judge asked. We can try to have a truce with the orcs. Take the initiative to offer a truce to the orcs? How can that be possible? Those uncivilized wild animals will certainly open their mouths or invade our territory when we are careless. The prosecutor shouted hysterically. I almost broke my teeth, but I still endured it. That's why I said, we have to try. Rolana stressed. This is the first time we've captured an orc, and it's an orc who knows the common language. I propose to do an experiment and give him higher education of our elves. If he can be civilized, it means the negotiation can be done with orcs. And if the results prove that the orcs cannot be civilized, then we can make up our minds to go to full-scale war with all our might. Lady Rolana, are you kidding? This is an ORC. Wensari said with an incredulous expression. They are the kind that conquers any intelligent species, from queen to princess to civilian women. As long as it is women. Whether young or old, the orcs will defile and forcefully breed. How can they be civilized? Nonsense. Which kind of orc would do such monstrous behavior? If I don't speak out, you would keep going extreme, wouldn't you? Finally, I couldn't endure it. I stood up and slammed the bars of my cage while roaring. The sound broke the atmosphere of the whole courtroom. Rolana stood still, and everyone from judges to prosecutor Wensari turned pale with fright. There were also screams of panic in the audience. And I could hear many elves falling to the ground from their seats. Please be quiet. It will affect my defense of you. Rolana glanced back at me. Then turned towards the judges again. It's true that orcs are the kind that conquers any intelligent species, from queen to princess to civilian women. As long as it is women. Whether young or old. Where the hell are you defending me? I roared again. Wasn't it just a repetition of the prosecution's slander about our race? I cannot endure this kind of unreasonable slander anymore. I will stress once again that we orcs are a civilized race and not uncivilized barbarians. My tribe is a civilized tribe that stipulates monogamy and advocates chastity before marriage. We don't do things like what you said. I grabbed the railings and shouted in the common language. Deception. Orcs are the embodiment of lust, it's common sense. Wensari adjusted her glasses. What kind of common sense was it? Are you sure you are not confused with the succubus? How? Veer, contrary to what I thought, all the female elves including Rolana, and all the judges, nodded in response to the prosecutor's words, and several echoes came from the audience. What? Are orcs really such terrible creatures in the eyes of these long-eared elves? I couldn't help but glance at the elves around me in astonishment, but it caused a commotion in the audience. Ah, bad, he looked at us. Don't look him in the eye, you will get pregnant? Disgusting, I am getting goosebumps. Extreme pervert. The eyes are full of desire, I am a little excited. Huh? How does it feel like there were strange remarks mixed in? No, wrong. All the remarks are very strange. Because the orcs are such an indecent species. I think Lady Rolana's proposal should be overruled and the orcs should be directly sentenced to death. As soon as I heard this, I couldn't help but tremble and said, yes, that's right. Without any delay and me. Don't humiliate me with this strange trial anymore. It was the long-cherished wish of every orc to die in a glorious battle. Even if captured as a prisoner. One should not yield to the cruel torture of the other side and die bravely. That was the end a warrior should have. Please listen to this, Chief Judge, he said. Yes, that's right. He personally admitted himself that he was an indecent species. Fart. When did I admit? I agreed that you should give me the death sentence. Mouth is full of filthy speech. Really unbearable to hear. The prosecutor threw a contemptuous look at me. Were the vocabularies you just used to insult our race very civil? Silence. The chief judge interrupted our argument and then turned towards the prosecutor. I must remind you, Prosecutor Wensari, that it is against the Alliance's law to execute prisoners of war who are not able to resist. Then, at least give him a life sentence. Orc's lifespan is very short. He looks very young. But he won't live more than 50 to 60 years, which is a very short sentence for us. It won't be a problem at all. Prosecutor Wensari continued. It's impossible to let the tiger go back to the mountain. Damn it, spending the whole life in a foreign prison? This kind of humiliating death is received by demons. If that's the case, I'll find a chance to escape. In that case, the judges began to seriously consider the prosecutor's proposal. I object. Rolana suddenly came with great momentum and raised an objection. Lady Rolana? Sorry, I am against it. Rolana glanced around. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If the experiment to teach the orc works, then it means that there is a possibility of a truce. At the very least, it will improve our understanding of the orcs. If we give up this opportunity, we have the only option of full-scale war with the orcs, which as mentioned earlier is not the best option. We have plenty of reason to try these. Compared with the foreseeable sacrifice we would make in war. What about the risks? Do you know how many ladies are going to that college? Put an orc in it. The chastity of all female teachers and students will be in danger. The prosecutor stood up and said, Lady Rolana, I have to remind you. You are the dean of that college. You should be responsible for the teachers and students of the college. I said we are a civilized race. I tried to retort, but I was ignored. The chief judge also nodded. Lady Rolana. As the prosecutor Wensari said, your proposal will bring unnecessary risks to our citizens. It is against the Constitution, so I have to reject it. Wait a minute. Regarding the risk, I have already foreseen about it and taken measures. Rolana pointed at me. Please let me introduce you to my new magical device, the collar that the orc is wearing around his neck. What? Is this collar a magical device? Oh, dare to ask our chief mage, what is the use of that collar? The prosecutor folded her hands. Let me show you. Rolana took out a transparent crystal from inside her robe. Firstly, this collar, which can be activated by a device, releases lightning magic. Its power is not lethal, but enough to deprive the wearer of the ability to move. As soon as her sentence finished, the crystal changed from transparent to red, and a powerful current suddenly penetrated my body, knocking me down with a violent spasm against the railings. I was wrong. It is not a device to humiliate me, it's a torture tool. And then there is the more advanced use of the collar. Holding the highest authority device would make the wearer act as directed. Rolana said to me, "Don't lie on the railing, stand up." With this command, my body, which had not yet recovered, suddenly moved without my will and stood at attention in the cage. My body is out of control. Sit down. Another command came and I was forced to sit cross-legged. Stop it. A warrior can be killed, not humiliated, I shouted to her. Shut up. The next command forced my mouth shut and made me unable to speak a word. Then the elf mage named Rolana stared at me with a chilling smile. Raise the hands, handstand. Turn around, muscle pose. Brutal collison, blade storm, invincible wheel. A series of commands came, each of which made my body writhe uncontrollably. Okay, stop. The moment commands stopped, I felt as if all the bones of my whole body had been ripped apart, and my body collapsed with a snap. I swear that if I have the opportunity I'll kill this elf mage. Then Rolana turned towards the trial bench. As you can see, with this collar around, this orc can't do any evil. I am going to give the electric shock activator to all the teachers, and I'll personally supervise this orc. In this way, it should be considered as enough insurance. The chief judge exchanged glances with other judges, if that's the case. So, Lady Rolana, will you take responsibility for all the consequences of this proposal? Obviously. Then, I hereby announce that your proposal will be adopted. The chief judge dropped the hammer. Where did things go wrong that it turned out like this? I collapsed on the ground, unable to make any sound. This matter goes back to a few days ago when I accompanied the old chief to inspect the border of the valley and forest frontier secretly. To simply put, we were ambushed. The strongest wolf would be chosen as the alpha. The strongest horse was chosen to be a stallion. And I, Brock, the strongest orc. Brock, the chief who walked across the bridge, cast a sad expression at me. I stood on the bridge and turned back with an unswerving determination in my eyes. I know, Chief, I will cover the back, you go quickly. I was chosen to die. I should have died in the glorious battle with you. I'm sorry. The chief gritted his teeth in disgrace. I understand that the tribe still needs you to lead them. Your surviving is not ignoble. Rather for the overall situation. Take my share in battle. I raised my battle axe and pointed towards the chief. Now go, I'll block those long-eared people. The ancestors are with you. Brave warrior. There were tears in the chief's eyes. One day we will meet on the grassland of the souls. After speaking, the chief turned and ran towards the valley without looking back. And I turned in the other direction, looking at the forest at the end of the bridge. The increasingly distinct sound of footsteps announced the arrival of the pursuers. And several arrows shot at me from the forest. I put the thick battle axe in front of me, blocking 2 arrows that came straight to my throat. 2 more arrows arched into my shoulder from above. And the rest stuck in the bridge. HMPH, it doesn't hurt or tickle. Long-eared elves' arrows were like needles to the strong orcs. The elf archers wearing grey cloaks and silver masks emerged from the depths of the forest, drawing their bows with arrows. I took a deep breath and with my all strength, let out a battle cry towards the forest which was enough to shake the hairy mammoths. I am Brock, the warrior of the Bloodaxe tribe. Who dares to fight with me to death? The roar obviously broke the archers' nerves and they stopped for a moment. A bunch of cowards, I will show you what a real warrior is. I roared again and charged at them with my battle axe. The archers scrambled to regroup, and the belated second wave of arrows shot in my direction. I used the battle axe to block the vital arrows, charged across the bridge, and leapt on the ground with one foot near the end of the bridge, creating deep footprints on the forest land. I dodged a few arrows with this jump, and at the same time narrowed the distance from the nearest archer. In less than 20 steps I could rush over and cut off the opponent's head. The archer shuddered and let out a scream. Without any hesitation turned and ran away, stumbling over a tree root after a few steps. Huh? This voice, female elf? Speaking of which, all the troops sent by the forest elves that have been fighting with our tribe were mostly female elves. However, whether it was a man or a woman, if you step on the battlefield, it's a warrior. Such cowardice was simply a disgrace to the warrior profession. I couldn't help feeling angry. I rushed forward and raised my battle axe at her. Since I am destined to die here, let me fight until the last moment. It is the long-cherished wish of every orc warrior to die in a glorious battle. You will be the first sacrifice. Just as my battle axe was about to drink blood, an invisible shock passed through the side of my brain. All of a sudden, the world turned upside down. The battle axe fell from my hand. I couldn't stand, went to sleep. With a blurry consciousness, I saw a figure not far away holding a staff and wearing a robe. Elf, mage. At last, as I fell down, I heard the mage say this with a smile. In this way, I became a captive of the elves. Your sentence has been announced. Are you going to still remain silent? The elf mage named Rolana crossed her legs in front of me and sat in a less decent posture. She was the same elf mage who attacked me with magic, captured me alive, then against all odds at that trial meeting, made the proposal that I should be educated in an elven institution. What the hell are you thinking? I asked the elf in an almost roaring voice. Whether it was on the way or now alone in the room with her, I would have liked to take advantage of her unpreparedness to subdue her, get the escape route with the most successful rate, then get out of this place and return to my own tribe. However, currently, I couldn't even move a finger. The mage was very careful and ordered me to sit crossed-legged in front of the desk, and she calmly sat on the desk looking down at me. This damn magic device collar makes me unable to disobey her. I have to find a way to break it. If you want to break this collar, you should save yourself some time. This is Sidian's chief mage. That is, my special magical device. No matter whether it is a knife, axe, fire, or water, it would still be alright. She immediately saw through my thoughts and gave me a playful smile. To some extent, you should be grateful to me. It was me who spent my tongue at the trial and saved you from life imprisonment. There was a smiling expression on her face. Spit. I didn't ask you to do this. I stared back at her ungratefully. Oh, how vulgar. You said at the trial that your orcs were a civilized race. But you can't even speak calmly? I couldn't say anything to refute. Tisk, although I am not reconciled, this elf's eloquence was obviously above me. I couldn't say that she is complete. Okay, let's not joke. With a triumphant smile, she adjusted her posture a little, coming to the point, as you should have understood at the trial. I want you to study in my college. I refuse. I interrupted loudly before she could finish. Refuse? Sadian Central Academy is the most prestigious institution in this country. How many elves have been breaking their head to get into the academy? You unexpectedly said that you refuse? I'm not an elf. Oh, your tribe might get destroyed if you refuse. Is that okay? What? I was shocked. HMPH, you're finally interested in the topic. Rolana smiled. Stop talking nonsense. What did you say about my tribe getting destroyed? I immediately asked. Answer my question first. If your tribe and Elves of Sadian got to war, which side do you think will win? I became silent. The answer to this was too obvious. Sadian, the country of elves. Forest Nation, was a big country with a long history, and our Bloodaxe tribe was a small tribe that moved out due to drought and settled down in the valley a few years ago. If the full-scale war starts, then our Bloodaxe tribe would have almost no chance of winning. The valley that your tribe occupies without permission is at the border of our country, which has not been included in our territory of our country because it is not suitable for elves to live in. But I don't think any elf would like a bunch of orcs living near their border. You know, orcs were once the race led by the Demon King, and our elves have always been enemies with it. But the Demon King is dead. We have long ago escaped from the enslavement of Demon King. Our ancestors rebelled against the Demon King and bought today's freedom with their blood. Our tribe had moved here because of the drought in the north. We just want to live in the land. We have no intention of invading your country. But I don't think many elves will believe it. Rolana finally got down from the desk. To tell you the truth, our country has put an agenda to expel you guys with all our force, but some people are hesitating. After all, the war will bring casualties. If this matter can be settled peacefully, everyone will be happy. Then why not do that? It was you who have never given us a chance for peace talks from beginning to end. You have rejected our emissaries. All along only armed troops have approached the valley, and you guys laid an ambush for me and the chief. As I said this, my anger rubbed up again. Haven't you realized yet? She sighed and shook her head. What kind of existence are orcs in the traditional concept of elves? You should have gotten some understanding through the trial meeting. Right? I was speechless. Take a look. These picture books and novels are some of the best-selling books about orcs written by our elves. If you read them, you will have a deeper understanding. Rolana took out a few books from the bookshelf and spread them on the floor in front of me. I looked at those books, and I couldn't help being petrified on the spot. Elvish is hard for you to read, but you should be able to imagine the contents of books just by looking at the cover. Right? On the cover of every book scat teared on the ground was painted with pictures of male orcs and female elves, and all of them were drawn quite indecent.